There's a strange exhaustion that comes from being nice, not the kind that follows a long day. The deeper kind, the one that settles in your chest after you agree to something you didn't want, swallow a reaction you felt, or smile when your body was quietly saying no. You tell yourself it's maturity, emotional intelligence, kindness. But somewhere beneath that story, something feels off. Because despite all your patience, all your understanding, all your restraint, respect never fully arrives. People listen to you, but they don't hear you. They lean on you, but they don't hold you. They appreciate you, right up until it's inconvenient. And the most painful part is this: you don't feel angry. You feel invisible. You replay conversations afterward, wondering what you could have said differently. You feel tension in your jaw from words that never left your mouth. You notice how often you soften your tone before someone else even asks. This isn't politeness. This is self-erasure disguised as virtue. And it didn't start because you're weak. It started because, at some point, being agreeable felt safer than being real. Being too nice is rarely a personality trait. It's usually strategy. A nervous system adaptation learned early, quietly, and reinforced over time. One that taught you connection comes from minimizing friction, not expressing truth. You learned that tension leads to withdrawal. That disagreement risks abandonment. That emotional presence is conditional. So you adjusted. You learned to read rooms before reading yourself. To anticipate moods. To preempt conflict by dissolving your edges. Over time, your body internalized a simple rule. Safety comes from being easy to deal with. And that rule worked at first. It kept relationships intact. It reduced chaos. It earned praise. But it came at a cost you didn't notice until much later. Because every time you chose harmony over honesty, your sense of self grew quieter. You didn't lose your voice overnight. You just stopped trusting it. And now, as an adult, that same adaptation shows up as politeness that feels compulsive. Empathy that bleeds. Kindness that never returns. Not because people are cruel, but because niceness without boundaries doesn't command respect. It signals availability without consequence. Respect doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being felt. And this is where the uncomfortable truth lives. When you suppress your emotional range to stay agreeable, people stop sensing your internal weight. Human beings unconsciously respond to tension, to presence, to the subtle signals of self-definition. When someone never pushes back, never claims space, never risks friction, the nervous system of others registers them as non-threatening and eventually non-essential. Not weak, but optional. This isn't about dominance. It's about clarity. Because when your boundaries are invisible, people fill in the gaps however they want. They decide what you'll tolerate. They assume your limits don't matter because they've never encountered them. And the irony is brutal. The nicer you become, the more resentment builds. The more resentment builds, the colder your kindness feels. And the colder it feels, the less people trust it. What began as generosity turns into quiet self-betrayal. And your body keeps score through tension, fatigue, numbness. This is not moral failure. It's a system running past its expiration date. Inside you, two forces are constantly negotiating. One wants peace at any cost. The other wants truth, space, and self-respect. The first says, don't rock the boat. The second whispers, this doesn't feel right. And over time, ignoring that second voice creates a split. You become emotionally fluent with others and disconnected from yourself. You sense this in small moments. When you say yes and feel heavy afterward. When you explain instead of assert. When you apologize for having needs. You don't feel empowered. You feel managed. And here's the deeper issue. People don't respect you because you don't fully inhabit your own authority. Not consciously, not intentionally. But authority comes from congruence, when what you feel, think, and express line up. When those signals fragment, the world responds accordingly. This isn't about becoming harsh. It's about becoming whole. The shift doesn't begin with confrontation. It begins with permission. Permission to let discomfort exist. Permission to be misinterpreted. Permission to pause instead of smooth things over. Strength doesn't announce itself loudly. It settles. It shows up when you stop explaining yourself to earn acceptance. When you allow silence to hold its ground. When you let someone feel the boundary instead of negotiating it away. At first, this feels wrong. Your nervous system resists. Guilt surfaces. But that guilt isn't morality. It's conditioning. And as you tolerate that discomfort, something changes. Your presence deepens. Your words land differently. People listen, not because you demand it, but because you no longer leak urgency. You stop being predictable. You stop being endlessly accessible. And paradoxically, that's when respect begins to form. True kindness isn't soft. It's grounded. It doesn't erase itself to be accepted. It doesn't overextend to be loved. It doesn't confuse self-sacrifice with virtue. Real kindness has edges. It has weight. It has the courage to let others feel disappointment without rushing to fix it. When you stop being too nice, you don't lose compassion. You embody it. Because compassion without self-respect collapses. But compassion anchored in boundaries becomes power, quiet, steady, unmistakable. You were never meant to be agreeable at the cost of yourself. You were meant to be present. And the moment you choose that, not loudly, not aggressively, but honestly, the world recalibrates. Not because you change who you are, but because you finally stop disappearing. If this resonated, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because something in you is waking up.